Alright guys, so the next concept we're going to learn is the internal rate of return, also called IRR. Now, the IRR is a similar concept to the NPV, the key difference being it shows the profitability of the potential investment in percentage terms rather than a dollar amount term, which is what the NPV shows you. The two concepts of NPV and IRR are very intricately linked. The IRR is the discount rate, which gives a net present value of 0. And this is something that we're going to see in the next video, where we will go over an Excel example of how exactly this plays out in practice. But going back to the theoretical understanding for a second, the way the IRR works is it's used to compare the return of a specific project to the cost of capital for that project. And the way you do this is by comparing the IRR of that project with the discount rate, or the WACC. For example, in the previous video, we saw that the discount rate for the project was 8%. What this means is we would not be approving a project which has an IRR of less than 8. If a project had an IRR of 9%, for example, it would be approved. However, if it had an IRR of 7%, it would not be approved. And the final thing here is that, similar to the NPV, the IRR is also used to compare and rank projects. So if a firm has a limited amount of resources and it has 3 projects delivering an IRR of 10, 11, and 12%, for example, it should be choosing the project which has the highest IRR. Now guys, in the next video, we're going to go over the Excel and practical calculation of this concept, and we will see how the two concepts of NPV and IRR are linked. Alright guys, so we're back to our Excel sheet now, and what we'll do now is calculate the IRR in Excel. And this is a very simple calculation in Excel because Excel provides us with an inbuilt IRR function which effectively allows us to input the stream of cash flows which we have, which in this case is this stream of cash flows, and it automatically calculates the percentage return, or the implied percentage return from the cash flows. Now, as we discussed in the previous video, the IRR as a concept is very intricately linked to the NPV. So as we saw here, the IRR of this project is 13.9%. Now, if you recall from the previous video, the NPV of a project is 0 if we apply a discount rate which is equal to the IRR. So in this example, where we've calculated the NPV based on a discount rate of 8%, if we were to apply a discount rate of 13.9%, what you will see here is that the NPV goes down to 0, which actually shows you the link between the NPV and the IRR. Another variant of this IRR formula is XIRR, which is another inbuilt Excel formula, and the difference between this formula and the previous formula is that it allows us to specify the future dates when we receive the cash flows. Now, both the NPV and the IRR formulas, they've got an inbuilt assumption that the cash flows occur on an annual basis. What the XIRR function allows us to do is to select the stream of cash flows, but also provide the specific dates on which the cash flows are received in the future. Now, as you'll see in this case, the formula gives us the same number. Now, in order to illustrate how this would actually work in practice, let's tweak one of these dates to show you exactly how the XIRR formula differs from the IRR. Now, obviously, the dates that we've been provided here, or the assumption that we're working off, is that the cash flows occur at the end, or we receive the cash flows at the end of each year. But now let's assume that this $350 which we are assuming received at the end of December, let's assume that we instead received it in the middle of the year, in June. So effectively, we've received this $350 a lot earlier, or 6 months earlier, than assumed in the IRR calculation. Now, as expected, if you were to think about it intuitively, if we receive an amount of cash earlier, then the overall return from that cash flow should be higher. And this is what the formula shows us. If we receive those cash flows earlier, then the IRR is higher. And this is what the XIRR formula allows us to do. It allows us to input the specific dates in order to have a more detailed formula.